Lingua podcast live from Dessau is broadcast from Mitteldeutschland and features all things languages. The show is hosted by our teachers, presenting students and guests from all walks of language learning experiences. Joining us today is Leticia Brown. She's from Chicago. She studied in Dessau. She also taught English. And in her spare time, she got her B2 certificate in German in less than 2 years. How did she do it? Let's find out more. Welcome, Leticia.
Hi, Scott. Hello, everyone listening. Thank you for having me here.
It's good to see you back in the office again.
It's good to be back here. I have a lot of good memories. Yeah, it's great. This was like my second home, so it's good to be back.
So, Leticia, before we start out, briefly tell us, what brought you to Germany in the first place?
Oh, this is a good question. So I was living in New York at the time, and I was working for the U.S. government, actually. So I was working at that time at the U.S. District Court in New York City. So I had a totally different career, totally different life. But I had been traveling a lot during this time, and I was just going through some changes within, let's say, and I just wanted to take a break. So I was in the middle of changing my career. So I had decided that I didn't want to do this government thing anymore.
Okay.
So I went back to school to study design, and I was doing both. I was working full time and still going to school. And I graduated. I graduated from Fashion Institute of Technology in 2017 in May. And then by September 2017, I was in Germany. So 4 months later. I wanted to take a break. New York's hard. It's fast. It's expensive. And like I said, I had been traveling a lot during that time, and I wanted to live somewhere longer than 2 weeks. You're 2 weeks and you have to come back and go back to work. And I just wanted to live abroad long term.
So how did you decide on Germany? Was it the actual program, the graduate program at the Bauhaus Foundation?
It was. So, I never thought I would be living in Germany. I was here for the first time in 2016, as part of my travels. So I was in Berlin. I came here alone. I like to do a lot of solo traveling. And I was in Berlin for about 5 days. And I had a great time, but I never thought that, a year later I would be living in Germany. It was never on my wish list of places to live.
Okay.
But yes, so I came across the master's program, and it sounded really interesting. And, but again, this was an option of 3. I had 3 different options for myself at the time. One was just to take a break for a year and travel open-ended. My other option was to teach English in Spain. I was accepted and placed in Madrid, so that was an option. And then the third option was to do a master's program.
Okay.
Yeah, so I ended up getting accepted into the program here in Dessau, and I thought that it was a nice balance, right? I would get to live abroad, but also still focus on my career, and have the opportunity to travel. So that's how.
Yeah. So what exactly did you study here?
I studied design research. So this is more of a theoretical approach to design. So we didn't design anything. It was more research and writing based. And the idea was to possibly prepare you for a PhD, which I did not end up doing. I decided that I didn't want to do PhD for now.
Okay.
For now. But yeah, it was great. It was a program of maybe there were about 20 of us. It was taught in English. Mm-hmm. With people from all over the world, Thailand, Brazil, India. It was amazing. And it was a cooperative program. So there was a lot of group work and stuff like that. But very accelerated. So it was a 1-year master's program. And this is why I was attracted to doing it. I thought, okay, I could commit to living in Germany for a year, and then you get a master's degree to boot. So yeah, it sounded like a great deal, and it but it was really fast. So in principle, like I could have used a year and a half to do this master's program, but it is what it is. I graduated.
So let's talk a little bit about, okay, so the courses were in English.
Courses were in English, yeah.
Was it important to you to learn German or to start learning German when you first arrived? If you thought you were only going to be here for 1 year?
Yeah, this is a good question. I definitely thought that I would only be here for a year. That's very true. And I didn't intend to learn German. So this decision to learn German came about unexpectedly, right? It wasn't a conscious decision, I'll say. So like before I moved here, of course, I was doing Duolingo to familiarize myself with the language, which helped a bit actually.
What is that Duolingo?
So this app that you can learn German, and it's great for vocabulary. And for me, it was nice because when I arrived here, then the language didn't seem so strange, you know, so foreign, right? So I would recognize some words here and there. So that was nice. It helped with the shock, let's say, of being immersed in a new language. So I started with that when I was still living in New York. And then being on the campus is what actually inspired me to learn German.
Okay.
Well, to learn another language. It just so happened that I'm in Germany, so learning German would be a good idea. Yeah, because I'm surrounded now by students from all over the world, and I saw that they could speak 2 or 3 languages already, you know. And, you know, for us, you know, English is our language, and it really shined, you know, a light on my monolingual skills.
So you were shamed into learning a second language.
I took it on as like a challenge. So learning German became, well, it was more of a personal challenge than anything else. Yeah, I didn't want to be the person who could only speak English.
Okay.
Yeah. And I felt like, okay, yeah, if I'm going to live abroad and make a life here, then yeah, I need to step up my language skills a bit.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Like, you wanted to participate in discussions, and you wanted to interact with your friends in a different language.
Yeah.
So that motivated you too.
For sure. Yeah, I was really inspired by the other students. Yeah, they could speak 2 or 3 languages. So, yeah, why shouldn't I? I should be able to do this. But also then there's the practical, like the reality of living in Germany. And if you know German, it makes your life a whole lot easier.
How so?
You know, you have to go to the Ausländerbehörde. You have these appointments that you need to make, or you need to make a doctor's appointment. And knowing the language gives you your independence, you know, some degree of independence, because that's what I was really missing. This is something that I was struggling with, right? Going from your own country where you can do everything, and then now you need either the help of someone or it's a struggle. So I wanted to have this independence, I guess, back in my life.
It's like regaining independence.
Yeah.
And it's an accomplishment too, like communicating in a different country, in that particular foreign language, and you know, being understood. And to understanding.
Yes. There's a lot of putting yourself out there. There's a lot of vulnerability that comes with learning a new language, I must say. God. So learning German has also helped me work on making myself vulnerable, putting myself out there.
Can you give us one example of where you felt vulnerable?
Yeah, all the time. So I feel most vulnerable, I'll say, when I have to do business over the phone, let's say, because, you know, in person, I could use body language. I can use my hands. I can show them stuff. So it's not as bad. You can use a little bit of charm if you have it, but over the phone, you don't have that. So, yeah. But I'll have to say that going through these job interviews is where I felt the most vulnerable. All right, because I want to present myself in a professional way. I want to show myself in the best light. But even with the level of German that I have now, it's still, I still have my weak spots, let's say. It's still a challenge. It's still a challenge.
We should tell everybody right now that you have a B2 certificate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do have this.
So you've been interviewing for jobs during the pandemic,
During the pandemic,
making it
yes.
extra difficult, right?
Yes, very difficult.
Have you had online interviews or mostly telephone interviews?
I have had online interviews, so on Zoom or
Okay.
Teams, something like this. I've had some initial phone calls, but that was mostly just to schedule the interview, and then the actual conversation took place
Okay.
on a video call. Yes.
Have all the interviews been conducted in German?
Yes.
Okay.
And that, I have to say, was, yes, vulnerable, difficult, all of that, but it was actually a dream come true or a goal accomplished. So when I was going through this process of learning German, I set the goal that I wanted to have an interview in German.
Okay.
This was something I wanted the whole time, and I finally did that. So on the one hand, the interview was difficult, but on the other hand, I got to accomplish this goal that I set while I was a German student.
So in your graduate degree program, were German language courses offered to students?
Yes, that was actually a nice thing. They were offered to us, but not very frequently. So we had German classes once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, so it wasn't much, but I did take advantage of those classes, so that was nice. But it was only because, as I said, the master's program was accelerated, so we didn't really have a lot of time for anything else. So learning German beyond that was not a possibility until after I graduated.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the decision to stay also was unplanned. Like the 1 year went by so quickly, and I just decided that I wasn't ready to go back. Like I wasn't. 1 year wasn't enough. I learned that.
You get accepted to graduate school in Germany. And when a student graduates, you are allowed a certain amount of time?
Yes. So if you study and you get a degree here in Germany, then you can apply for a job seeking visa, which gives you 18 months to find a job.
So what was the reason that you weren't ready to leave?
Oh, another good question. I felt there was more to do. I was having fun. I saw the change in my lifestyle, like for the better. It was, more relaxed. And I wanted to experience more of Germany. So at this time, I'm only in Dessau, which is fine. But I wanted the chance to experience other parts of Germany. I was liking the lifestyle.
So what exactly about the lifestyle did you like?
Yeah, it's easier.
How so?
And in Dessau, I can't speak for everywhere in Germany. I can only speak for my time in Dessau, but I really learned how to appreciate the simple things in life. So in Dessau, our options for nightlife and socializing are a little bit limited. So, we spent a lot of time, meaning myself and my friends from the university, we spent a lot of time in the park and having picnics and having barbecues. And it forced me to slow down. So living here forced me to slow down and just appreciate these moments where you're in the park with a friend. And I also have to mention we were students, right? So we were on a budget. So we also, we couldn't go to restaurants all the time the way maybe I would when I was living in New York. But we would get together and cook. That's also something I really learned to appreciate having lived here. The cost of living compared to New York is, drastically different. So not having to worry about that has been amazing. Going to the grocery store, is a nice experience. It's affordable, but you can also take your time in there. You know, sometimes in New York there would be a line outside of Trader Joe's. So
Right.
this is what I was coming from. But yeah, it's been nice. It's you know your neighbors here. You see people in the supermarket and you stop and have conversations. So I've finally got this sense of community
Okay.
here in Dessau, which I didn't have in New York. I didn't have it in Chicago either. So that's been the biggest gift, I guess I can say, that I've gotten from living here. I think part of it, at least from my experience, comes from being a student at the university. We're all new here. We're all going through the same thing. We're all having the same like stress of having to do life in German. And I think that's part of it. Just being a part of student life is a built-in form of community. But I think there's also something special about the people. I just feel like, I mean, there was such a camaraderie among the students at the university. People were super friendly. It wasn't cliquish. I don't know. I just had I was lucky that I had a positive experience. So people naturally gravitated to each other. So I think that helped. And then I think, yeah, the slowness of life here also supports this feeling of community, right? There's less distractions. I think there's a lack of community in New York where it's hard to find because there's so many options, right? But yeah, in Dessau, sometimes there's just one party and everyone's going to go to that party.
Yeah. Yeah. For our listeners, we're comparing life in Dessau and life in New York City, right? Which doesn't seem that fair, but still, like there are some similarities and differences.
So yeah, I mean, how one finds community is different, I guess, depending on the city, whatever. But the point I want to make is that, you know, Dessau was well suited for at least for me, for finding this community because there's less options.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you graduate from university, you're not ready to go home. Is that when you start to really focus on your German language lessons?
Yeah, because everything's happened so quickly. I graduated and I didn't have a plan because I was so busy during this year writing my thesis. And when I finally had time to like look up and take a breath, I had graduated and I didn't have a plan, but I knew I had these 18 months. So the next natural step felt like learning German. Yeah, I hadn't worked on my portfolio. Yeah, I didn't have a plan. So the next logical step was to learn German. And that's what I did.
So do you think you secretly wanted to stay then? Because that's your ticket to staying, right? Language.
The language. Yeah. For me, I guess this is just my personal belief that, you know, you're living in a country, you should learn the language. So it was important for me to do that. Yeah.
Let me reverse that.
Yeah.
Because you're an American, I'm an American. Everybody living in America, do they need to speak English?
Ooh, I feel like I'm in the hot seat. I think that this is a good question. Short answer, yeah. If you want to do life in a country, I think the easiest way to do life in a country is to speak a common language. Should we, as Americans, open up our mind and get comfortable with other languages? Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I think that American youth, the youth of America, they should learn a second language. They should learn a language much earlier, right? We learn it most in high school, right? In the 9th class to the 12th. But I think that we should start learning it much sooner.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that I'm living in Germany. It's going to make my life much easier to learn the language. And yeah, also the reverse in the US.
Okay.
But we shouldn't stop people from speaking other languages. But I think we should offer more support to people in the US who want to learn English. I think that's
Okay.
kind of where we fall short. We tend to say, yeah, you're in the US, you should speak English, but we should actually offer the resources for people to do so and make it much easier.
Okay.
It was easy for me. I had the resources to learn German. That's another thing. This is why I was able to go all the way to B2.
Okay, so let's come back to your German language lessons. All right, you graduated. You want to stay in the country. You need to focus on language. You have 18 months.
18 months.
Okay, so tell us your path into learning German.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, I had a few bits and pieces from the app and from the classes that I was going to at the university. I made an appointment within Lingua, right? So another good thing about being on the campus is you get information from other students. So
Right.
there are a bunch of other students who were also taking classes at InLingua. So I kind of knew what the process was. So I came to InLingua, made an appointment to do the assessment test.
Okay.
And I scored into the A2 level.
Okay.
So this is where I started. And yeah, I think I started with my classes. So I graduated in August and I started my classes, I believe, sometime in September.
Okay, so right afterwards.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
pretty quick. And I was doing what is that? The integration course. Yeah, I was doing the integration course. So that means I was here Monday through Thursday for 3.5 to 4 hours
A day.
So it was the intensive course. And it was fun. I mean, it was intense. I would come home after my class and take a nap. I think I wasn't prepared for the effect it would have on me physically. I have to say that.
Right.
But I guess that just is proof that you're really learning.
Yeah.
You know, something in your brain is changing.
4 hours a day
It's intense.
is very intense. And did you like your teachers?
Yes. So I'm trying to think who I had. Yeah, I liked my teachers. So we stuck mostly with the same teacher. So we didn't really change.
Okay.
So I had the same teacher from A2 all the way to B1.
And how long does that take?
Ooh, so each module, so we start with A2.1 and then A2.2. And I believe each module might have been 6 weeks, something like this.
Okay.
But my path from A2 to B2 was about 14 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, so I was here, let's say from 12:30 to 3:45, something like this. And it was really a unique experience that I'm happy to have. I mean, because you're with people who have different motivations for being in the class. You're with people from several different countries, different accents, different learning styles in the classroom.
Okay. How so?
I noticed that some students they take a more collaborative approach to learning, where if we get a worksheet, then they're doing it with their partner. And I'm, American, that I want to do the worksheet alone. Yeah, so I noticed that I had a more individualistic approach to learning and other students had a more collaborative approach. And yeah, just classroom communication. Like for better or worse, right? I'm trained to raise my hand, right? We've been beaten over the head with this
Okay.
most of our lives. And other people feel free to just, I have the answer, I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
So this was like the biggest, not shock, but something I learned from being in the class, in this environment in the classroom. It was good. It was good for me.
So what worked in the classroom for you? Did you guys do
We
role
did.
plays, or did you like break up into groups and do small group activities, or did you watch videos, or did you listen to listening exercises? Like what was the most important aspect of that classroom experience that you thought was most beneficial?
Yeah, so we did a little bit of everything. We followed the book. We did listening exercises, role play. But I have to say that for me, the most important part, or the part where I learned the most, I guess, was through these like learning by doing type things, like the
Okay.
role play. So once I got to the B2 level, it was Deutsch für den Beruf, so professional German. So for example, right, if we're learning about interviewing, then we would actually like do a mock interview.
Okay.
So I got the most out of those experiences where we're either up moving around the classroom or we're giving a presentation.
Okay.
So that worked most for me. Like there was one time in my class where, we had to create a company and we had to come up with a logo. Then we had to present our company to the class.
Okay.
So I learn best in those situations, and like logos, das logo. And I'll never forget the article because of this moment. But other than that, I'm terrible with the articles. But I remember das logo because of this activity.
I think many Germans struggle with the articles.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they were more open about that. I think we should all be open about how much we struggle with the articles.
So outside of the classroom, were you practicing what you had learned that particular week or that particular like module? Like
Yes. Yeah. I think really that's the key. I mean, everyone has their own way, but for me, I would come home, do my nap, take a nap, and then I would watch YouTube videos. So if there was something that was introduced, let's say a particular grammar point or something, and I didn't understand it the first time, then I would just find a similar video on YouTube to help me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it took me time actually to find like a method that worked for me.
Okay.
So I'm someone that tries a little bit of everything. So I watched different kinds of YouTube videos, and then you get to know the personalities on YouTube. So I have people that I like. So I tried watching movies in German at first, and for me, I really think that depends on what your level is.
Okay.
So I tried that when I was still maybe A2 level, and it wasn't working for me.
Too difficult.
Yeah. But it works for me now.
Okay.
Yeah. So I tried it, didn't work for me at that time, so I moved on to something else. And even reading isn't more enjoyable for me now. So really, like the YouTube videos really worked for me, especially at that early A2 stage, even into the B1.
Okay.
Yeah. So I definitely, I would come home after class, take a nap, and then do a little bit of YouTube.
What do you think is the most important, or not the most important, but the most challenging of the four skills, like writing, reading, listening, or speaking, for you?
For me, the speaking. Yeah. I think that I approached this journey, let's call it, really optimistically. And I thought that, once I get to B2, I'm a German speaker. Everything's going to be totally easy. And I can't speak for other languages, but at least with German, it's like the more you learn, the more you see how far you have to go.
Okay.
So for me, the speaking has been most challenging. The reading and the writing came easy. I would say easiest. Then it was listening, and then of course it's the speaking, because speaking, everything's happening in real time, and I don't know. I think that's the true test of whether you've gotten the language.
Okay.
In a way, and even now, I think that I need to practice actually more with the speaking. But yes, and I think that just depends on the person. Like I acquire reading and writing naturally comes easy to me,
Okay.
even in my own language. So yeah, that transferred over to German. So maybe this is like whatever strengths you have naturally will also present themselves when you're on your language learning journey. Yeah, because I think the speaking has a lot to do with confidence.
True.
Yes,
Yeah.
is what I've come
I
to
think like
discover.
living abroad, especially when learning languages, because you have this sense of accomplishment
Yeah,
and no one can take that away from you.
Yeah.
And then you start to feel more integrated
yeah,
and you start to meet more people. Mm-hmm. And then you don't want to go home.
yeah, yeah.
So it's almost like there is a strong sense of independence there that I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a strong sense of accomplishment.
And yeah, it really it gives you empathy, right, for other language learners. Like now that I've been placed, now that I've put myself in this situation where I'm living in a new country, now I can empathize deeper with people who come to our country and make a life. You know, it takes guts. Oh my God. You know, it takes vulnerability, bravery.
It does.
So I'm able to relate to it in a new way, empathize with it deeper. Yeah.
So does that mean, are you immigrating to Germany?
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a possibility, right?
It's a possibility. I've been taking it, I guess, year by year. Like I'm in my third year now of living here. And I'm just gonna see where life takes me. I'm gonna, see where it goes. There's things I miss about being back home, but I think you just have to balance the priorities. Like my life is easier here, so I think this is how I ended up coming into my third year.
Yeah. So what do you miss back home?
I miss, I guess, the personalities of the people. I feel like Americans, at least where I'm from in the Midwest, we're casual people. You know, we're open. We like to joke around. Things aren't so serious, I guess, if I can say that.
Okay.
Yeah, I really have come to appreciate the humor that Americans naturally tend to have, I guess.
Okay.
And again, maybe this differs by region, but I'm from the Midwest, and then I spent 6 years in New York. So I miss that. I miss the spirit of the people.
Okay.
Let's say.
Well, like on the university campus, you talked about a lot of different students from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different cultures. Are you close with a German family, or do you have really close German friends that you've introduced? Have you been introduced to their parents or their grandparents or?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I have to say that while I was a student, I didn't make a lot of connections or establish friendships with any German people, really. It wasn't until I graduated and started working and studying at lingua that really got me out of my bubble. And then I made German friends. So, and getting out of the student dorm where I was living. So then after graduation, I moved into an apartment. And that was super important to just make that transition into German life, let's say, because it really is kind of a bubble being on the campus. We speak English. You just don't have that connection to German people as much. And yes, so I have developed a very close friendship with my neighbor.
Okay.
She is a 73-year-old German woman.
Fantastic.
And she knows a few English words, but by and large, I'm forced to speak German with her. Yeah, and we've become really close. She has a key to our flat. I have a key to hers.
Okay.
We spend a lot of time together. And that's been an unexpected but very rewarding friendship. Yeah, I mean, who'd have thunk?
Like, how did that relationship come about? Just by you coming and going and you're passing in the hallway, or
Yeah, that's a great question.
how did that develop?
So, the shared flat that I'm a part of, let's say for the year or two. So it's an established student apartment. So even before I had come there, the students living there were already close with this woman.
Okay.
Yeah. And as a part of this shared flat, there were international students and there was one German person. So that was, I guess, the connection. Obviously, someone needs to communicate
Okay.
with this woman. So she was already familiar with the shared flat and the people in it. And as I was coming in, one of the flatmates made the introduction.
Okay.
Because by this time, they're all close with this woman and they're like, oh, they told me, yeah, I think it'll be good that you meet her because she gets attached to the people who are living here.
Okay.
And yeah. So before I even moved in, we all sat down and we had a glass of wine and I got to know her like this. So by the time I moved in, then we had already established contact and we knew each other. Yeah, I mean, she keeps her vacuum cleaner in our place because our flat's bigger.
So do you see her every day?
Yeah, almost every day.
That's cool.
Our windows like face each other so she can see me. We wave to each other from the kitchen. Yeah, she's become a part of my life, of our lives in the flat.
Right.
She's retired, so she accepts the packages on behalf of almost everyone in the building.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
So that's another way that people come to know her. So it's been nice. This is new for me.
Dinner parties,
Yeah, it's
hanging
been
out,
amazing.
socializing. No, it's good. It's good to, when you meet someone special like that, you'll always value that relationship.
Yeah. And again, like there's something about being in Dessau and being in this environment where you're open to that, to having friendships with someone who's different, of a different age, whatever, language. And she's a great lady, a very great lady. So, I mean, even before my German was at this level, we somehow managed.
Sure.
Yeah, we managed. Yeah.
So you mentioned you worked also here for En Lingua.
Yes, I did work. I worked at En Lingua almost a year and a half. Yeah. I was nearing the end of my graduate studies and then I started working here.
And how would you say that experience was?
It was wonderful experience. So I have to say that I had already been teaching when I was living in New York. This was something I was interested in, and again, I had this plan potentially to then move abroad and teach. So I got my start in New York. I was doing that. I was teaching basic English, which is one of my favorite levels to teach. I think it's fun. You just go in and you laugh and there's no pretension in there. You just go in and you have fun. So I was teaching students mostly from Spanish-speaking countries, basic English, and I decided that I loved it. I spent most of my time back then in an office, but somehow once I got into the classroom, I just got all of this energy. And at that point, I was liking it more than my normal 9 to 5.
What was the age category of the students you were teaching in the States?
They were all adults, I would say anywhere from maybe mid-20s to approaching 40 perhaps.
Okay.
But yeah,
Nice.
So I was teaching adults and then I discovered, I liked it. I was good at it. And then I got the opportunity, once I moved to Dessau, I got the opportunity to meet John. And then, he gave me this opportunity to start working here. And yeah, I'm trying to think back to how I started. So I did also company classes. So I would go out to the companies in the surrounding areas, and then I would also teach here on location. Um, but it's different, teaching in this context versus teaching in, in the context from where I came in New York and teaching back home.
How so?
I think you have to know your audience. You have to know your audience. At in lingua Dessau, I taught adults too, so that was, that's the same. And as you know, you have to also teaching adults is different. We're all adults, so
Yeah.
the way you teach, you have to adjust. Maybe you would teach differently than if you were teaching a group of children, let's say.
Okay.
Right, as an adult, you don't want to put yourself out there, right? In your normal day-to-day life, you're an intelligent, competent adult, and then you step into this language learning environment where all of a sudden you feel reduced in your intelligence and your competence. So right, as a teacher, you have to be sensitive to that.
I think a challenge here is sort of when you're teaching adults, like what is their learning style? And are they going to participate in role plays?
Yes.
Are they going to participate in
Yeah.
group activities
Yes.
or games or puzzles?
Yes.
It can be a challenge.
It's a challenge. And back to like the different learning styles that I experienced as a German student, based on what I witnessed in the classroom, it also rings true when I was a teacher teaching. So some groups of people are more open to role plays and games, and other groups of people are not. I just think it depends on what you're used to educationally,
Okay.
right? So I noticed that, teaching in New York, I think it was, maybe the games, and I just think there's a different, I don't know, how can I explain this? The relationship between teacher and student's different
Okay.
by nationality, right? Some countries it's a more traditional relationship, an authoritarian type of relationship where whatever the teacher says is right. Yeah. And in other countries, maybe it's a looser relationship where you can, actually have a different opinion. So that's something to keep in mind, and that's something I had to learn, that whatever I did with my students in New York, I couldn't do the exact same thing with my students here in Germany. It might not work.
As far as like the lesson plan.
Yeah, the lesson and the types of activities that we do. I think it just, and I don't know if this is a by country thing or an individual thing, but some situations you could go in and you have a looser style, more conversational type style, and some students want this really structured, regimented style.
Exactly.
And if you don't go through that process, then they don't feel like they're learning, but really they are.
Do you think, and this is one of my observations, do you think that the German, let's say the company classes that you taught, did the students take the responsibility for learning the language? Or do you think, sometimes I get the impression that we only have an hour or an hour and a half a week, and that's the time, right? There's not much effort that's being put into the language learning
Outside of that hour.
outside of that hour and a half.
Ooh, now we're really getting into
And then
the dirt.
No, but I think like that's part of my responsibility to sort of, to facilitate that growth. But sometimes I know that people don't have time.
Yeah, this is right, the challenge of teaching adults, right? They have other responsibilities. Yes, I also had this observation, right? Some students come hoping to get everything they need to know in this hour, and that's it. But now, having been on both sides of the equation, you really do need you need to study on your own.
Right.
And that's going to make your in-class time much more rewarding and, I don't know, fruitful. So I would say, language learning is, half of the responsibility rests on the teacher for sure, but a lot of it rests on yourself. And
Well, like you said, you took courses, intensive courses, and then you would go home every day after your nap. Then you get right back online, look at YouTube videos. Like you took responsibility for your own learning.
Yeah, I think
And,
that's,
a year and a half later, you got a B2 certificate,
I can make doctor's appointments now.
and you can talk to the guy on the train station.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
All right, so let's talk about what's going to happen to you this weekend.
Okay, yes. So I'm preparing to leave Dessau, sadly, and move to Munich. So I'm starting a new chapter in my journey, let's say, my journey of living abroad. Yeah, you mentioned that I was job searching during this COVID time, which was challenging to say the least. I think we can all agree to that. But I managed to find a job, so I will be moving to Munich this weekend, and I'm excited, but also sad. I made a home here for 3 years, but I always wanted to experience more of Germany and experience German culture. Let's say that's been something that's been really important to me, which is another reason to learn the language. It allows you to engage more with the culture and to understand the culture through the language. So yes, I'll be moving there.
What's the new job, if you want to talk about it?
Yes, I'll be working as an interior designer. So finally making the switch from the old government worker now, and now I'm a designer, and it was a journey in and of itself. So I'm excited about that. Interestingly enough, the language of the job is in English, go
Okay.
figure. But it definitely helps to have the language.
But did you mention your interview was in German?
For this particular job, it was in English, but prior to this, I had two German interviews. Yeah.
Is it an international company or a German company?
This is an the office itself is international.
Okay.
So they're a mix of nationalities there. So that's why the common language is English. But most certainly when you're dealing with clients or outside vendors, you're going to need the German. So
Right.
I think that I made the right choice in starting this language learning journey. Yeah, so I'm excited to see what Munich has to offer. I hear that the accent's different there in Bayern.
That's what people say.
So I'm a little nervous, but also intrigued to see how my German holds up in a different state. I'm super open to whatever is going to happen in this next step. It's going to be an adjustment for sure, because I've been in my comfortable, cozy environment here in Dessau, and now I'm going to be living in a much bigger city. Different vibe. I don't know what I can compare it to. If I can compare it to moving from Chicago to, I don't know, down south in the US. I'm not sure what to compare it to.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
No,
think-
I think that if anyone's interested in learning German, they should definitely do it. Don't be intimidated. And understand that it's not an overnight thing. I think that was one misconception that I had, that, okay, once I reach B1, I got it. That's it. It takes time, and language learning's, individual things. Some people do adapt quicker than others, but it's a never ending. You're always going to be learning something. It never truly ends, I would say. So, yes, sign up, learn German. It will change you for the better.
And what would you say to people who are thinking about coming to Germany for university studies?
Yes.
For working abroad, for living abroad, for traveling, for I guess for studying as well.
I think honestly that it should be mandatory for all American students to do this, right? And if we make it mandatory, then of course we have to provide the resources. But I would love for American students, young people, to live abroad. It really shows you how spoiled you are. It humbles you. It's been an incredibly humbling 3 years. Yeah, we need this. You need to see that there are other ways of living. Our way isn't always the best. And it changes you. You're going to make friends for life. You're going to learn more about yourself. And you are going to bring this new you back to your hometown or whatever. But yeah, I think honestly it should be mandatory. And I would encourage everyone to start learning a language now.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be a part of your I don't know, your educational program. Learn the language. Learn a new language.
Is there another language that you have next that you're interested in studying now that you've becoming more and more comfortable with German?
Yes. So during the pandemic, I had some free time. So I started learning Italian.
Okay.
And again, I started with the app. But I've taken a break. I wanted to come back to German and really get my German to the next level.
Okay.
But I'm interested in Italian and Spanish.
Okay.
So I can speak a little bit of Spanish. So I have that foundation. So yeah, I'm interested in either Italian or Spanish next. And that's another thing about learning language is that it's addicting, right? Once you learn one, you want to learn another one. So yeah, my advice to people looking to come to Germany specifically, start learning the language now in some way, shape, or form, so that when you arrive, it's not a jarring experience when you see all the signs in German.
I mean, I drive. I still don't understand all the street signs.
Yeah.
Should I say that?
Yeah. Watch out for Scott on the road. But people should do it. Don't be afraid, I would say. Don't be afraid, especially in a place like Germany. It's a stable country. The lifestyle or the culture is not drastically different from the US. So I think it would actually be a good place to start.
Okay.
And then from there, you can get a little bit more adventurous.
Okay.
So do it.
Oh, that's good advice.
Yeah, do it.
Well, thank you so much for participating.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's been a pleasure to see you again.
Yes, it's been nice.
And we're excited about your future endeavors.
Yeah, I hope that you guys will have me back for an update.
Yeah.
If
let us know when you're coming back through town if you want some Chicago style deep dish, because this is like the 4th time I've made it.
Okay.
And this was the one that turned out the best.
Okay, good.
So I've got the recipe.
Good feedback
now.
from Jansu. And yeah, I think I will be back. Dessau is my home away from home. Yeah, I feel like if I have to claim a city in Germany, I would say, yeah, I'm from Dessau. If anyone asks me where I'm from Dessau. Yeah, so when I go to Munich, I'm from Dessau.
It'll be interesting to I'm sure people say like, okay, Dessau, but then, I mean, I think people know Dessau because of the Bauhaus.
One quick thing I have to say. I was, not this Christmas, but the Christmas before, I was in my hometown, Carpentersville, Elgin area. And I met some German people at the train station, at the metro stop. So
Fantastic.
it's this regional line that goes from suburbs to the city. I heard some people speaking German. I'm like, what is going on here? Not here. So yeah, I approached them and I spoke a little German with them. Turns out they had some family living in the area. And yeah, I was able to talk with them a bit and tell them I'm from Dessau. They knew it. So it was great. It was a great little...
See, when you start telling people in the States that you're from another country and another city, I think you've already left that place. Sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, once I'm at the train station speaking German, I think I've started to make my exit. But I don't know, I miss home and I hope to be there after the pandemic ends. It'd be nice to get back, see everyone.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to In Lingua Podcast, live from Dessau. We hope you stay tuned for more episodes.